Okay, I think there are two parts to this question. Let me answer the first one first. The matter of availability of replacement and maintenance parts is probably very good, simply because there are quite a number of mills of the same kind still in operation. And it isn't just a single mill in mothballs, there are quite a number of them. And so they're obviously an extant source of replacement parts. The second part is, no, American universities don't do a damn thing to teach anything to anyone in the area of skills and expertise that you talk about. Some of such training does go on in some American institutions, but they're not universities. And another crying need in most of these countries is to develop a fairly large number of people with capability in machine tool work, small design problems, so forth. I mean, this is an absolutely critical need, and one which is not really being met very well. And it bothers me, for example, to realize that in Ghana there are 3 universities which in various ways attempt to educate students, large number of students, at the most sophisticated levels, the standards set by universities in the world. As far as I can determine, there's only one small mechanical trade school, which is apparently very good, but it has something under 100 students. And it appears to me that this is well, you know, here I am saying what the Ghanaians should do, and obviously all I can give is an impression, but something appears to me to be out of balance, because they need machine tool people more than they need more professors of chemistry. I'm sure of it. And yet the latter is being produced more effectively in larger number. Could I respond? Oh, okay, that's it, yeah. I don't think that this is primarily a grievance which should be held against the American universities. The American universities are as they are, and I have lots of beefs about them, but that's not one of them. I mean, the fact that in our own society we probably have become unbalanced in developing the kind and breadth of educational experience is something else which is an internal domestic problem, and one which I think we should deal with. What we offer to students who come from foreign nations is almost exclusively dictated by what they ask for. Now, I have talked with people in India about the possibility of sending students to this country to do things like study machine trades. And they say that it's entirely contrary to their culture at the present time, because at the present time they do and will probably continue to select those who are considered to be the intellectually most gifted, to send those to the places where their classical intellectual talents can be best cultivated. That's therefore not our choice, it's theirs. And I submit that we get into damn serious difficulty if we go meddling too much in those policies which are internal national policies. You know, I disagree with some of the choices, but it is their choice and must be. Yes? I think that's I think that's a very valid question, and I don't apologize for using phraseology which seems related to sociology. I don't think, words are not copyrighted, and they're part of my vocabulary, and the concepts which go with them may be naive, but they're my concepts, and so that's what I have to offer. Now, the notion that these activities would profit very strongly by making them more thoroughly collaborative on the part of the donor nation like the United States, calling upon resources and interaction with people from fields other than science and hard technology is perfectly obviously valid. I agree with you. And I don't think that enough of that has been done, but God, we're crazy sort of people. It's damn difficult to even get chemists and physicists to work in collaboration on something like this, and it's a bad habit. Well, I mean, irrespective of the details of how you put it, I accept and agree with the conclusion. I mean, it could improve things. They're qualitative words, not precise words. Well, I used the term derived technology as an identification of a common concept. I don't think it's a terribly accurate one, but this is thought of as it's a common talking point, so that's why I used the phrase. I'm interested in your comment about what you perceive as change to technology and derived science. I don't think things have ever really been terribly different from that. I mean, people have a lot of mythology in their minds about what science is and where it came from. But it's interesting to note that Sadi Carnot was worrying about things like boring of cannons and machines of war and their efficiency, and thought these things through rather carefully, and this led him to very important formulations of laws of thermodynamics. And so the science derived from a technology has been a very important part of where science has come from for a long time. Now, some of the details may well have changed, but the flow as being at least as much that way as the other way is not a new thing, although I think that scientists during a very brief period of about the last quarter century have developed a certain amount of arrogance in recognizing their origins and dependencies. And I think that this does have some fairly important implications for the way we behave and the success that we're going to have in international transfer, simply because among the most transferable things in Western science are its myths. And so we send them along with the rest of the package, and they sort of get even more sanctification in the process. Yes? Uh, I can't really speak to this because it's a subject I know nothing about. However, having covered myself, I'll go ahead and say something about it. It appears to me that it is possible that the transfer of police technology works fairly well because it's a very simple technology. I mean, it's not terribly sophisticated in the part which is obviously readily transferred. And one of the reasons why I feel sort of confident in saying that is that at the superficial operating level of police technology is pretty similar throughout much of the world which transfers it, and in fact it's damn similar to what it's been for a long time. You know, it's not a very highly evolved technology. Perhaps this doesn't have is not true. I may be oversimplifying it, but it's a off the top of my head guess as to why it might be true. God knows if manufacturing processes were as easy as that, I think we really would do better with them. Yes. A lot of people have thought about it, and I've thought some about this myself, and I don't have any clear solutions. I think it looks like a terribly dangerous thing for the LDCs, and it's a bad scene. And I can't think of any other way of describing it. Now, the reason for the increase in the prices that I talked about is not just the increase in the oil prices. It just happens that because of the increase in the oil prices, the oil-rich nations are likely to become very lively and active customers because they're going to have capital and they do want to spend it this way. A principal reason for the price going up is the fact that Americans who don't have nearly as dominant a position in international commercial markets as they did a brief time ago are, becoming very worried, very stingy. Why should the Japanese have used all these patents that we developed? And I'm sure you've read about either cut off the flow entirely, which sounds impossible and I think would be a worst thing that could be done, or find some way of jacking the price way up so we make the buggers pay through the nose for it. And I mean, if you're dealing with capital-rich countries, this may even make a certain amount of common sense, but it makes the very poor nations get caught tighter and tighter in the vice, which they're already in a bad way. Yeah. Shall I toss a coin? I asked if I should toss a coin to see who goes next. I quite agree. And I think that the case which is just being documented, which I referred to about Taiwan, is a brilliant example of this. I mean, those technologies are exactly what you described. They're induced technologies, and that's part of the reason that they've been so very successful. You know, once again, there's just a tremendous amount that none of us are going to say during this two-day symposium, and obviously 50 minutes is only a small part of that. But you're absolutely right, as far as I can see. And this matter of our taking a law and having difficulty in adjusting to the realities of the situation in other countries is very real. When I was doing this 2-week job in Ghana, yeah, I kept being terribly nervous at the comments, suggestions of some of my fellow American panelists. I just wanted to scream, don't you realize that this country is has a state socialist system? It's a different system. All those things you're suggesting have no meaning here because that's not the way it works. And yet, it's almost instinctive to keep doing it. Thank you. There's just one other comment that I want to make on that, and that is that there's a possibility that here in this room tonight, when we talk this way, we're repeating one of our mistakes. And one of the reasons why I said some of the things I did about technology transfer, rather than what might be a more desirable thing, from our point of view and our perception, is an awful lot of the former is what we are being asked for. And I think we're not always being asked for the things that are most needed or we might most properly give. And yet considering the questions involved in responding to the demand, whether we can respond or not, is an important part of the act.
I think it probably we worked George about long enough, and for my own part, it's delightful to hear you hold forth again with your accustomed vigor and imagination. Thank you.
Oh, you know, of course he's got a good point. Of course.